realize that your sacrifices were all for nothing. When my sister turned my back on me, 24 hours after I risked my life for her. Me and her grew up in an ultra-religious household, complete with the kind of crazy mom who beat it into us that we'd burn in hell if we ever sinned. I grew up terrified of her in the church, but as I got older, I started rebelling in my own little ways. I'd make friends with people who weren't Christian. I'd come down with terrible fevers on Sundays, and I'd always try to teach my sister that she was her own person with a choice. That was my mistake. Because just a few weeks after my first conversation with her about it, I noticed something was off with her. She started getting pale and queasy every morning. She withdrew into herself and stopped talking to everyone except me. After a lot of pressing when our parents weren't present, she admitted that she had gotten pregnant. My eyes went wide. I started asking her if she was ready to be a mother, and that's when she broke down and said she had already terminated the baby with the help of a school counselor. I told her it was okay. She had nothing to worry about, but it turns out she did, because our parents found the pregnancy test in the bathroom bin a few days later. They came into our room, more excited than ever, asking which one of us was blessed enough to have a baby. I glanced over at Emily, and she was absolutely trembling. She looked like she was about to pass out from fear. And so, like the protective older sister I was, I blurted out, "It was me." My parents looked ecstatic, but then I continued, "I didn't want it. I got it terminated. In fact, it made me realize I never want kids in my life." Just like that, my parents went white, then absolutely exploded. Mom started screaming that I was an abomination who was going to suffer in hell for eternity, and my dad stared with silent disgust. They wasted no time dragging me before the church elders next Sunday. I stood there, shaking and humiliated, while the pastors called me unclean and demanded I publicly confess to everyone or leave forever. It felt unreal, watching my life unravel because I'd wanted to protect my sister. That night, with my parents telling me to repent or be gone, I stuffed some clothes in a bag and left. I spent the night sleeping curled up in my car, and my sister texted me, promising we'd always stay close, thanking me over and over. I clung to that text like everything I'd lost had been worth it to protect her, but that didn't last. Because from literally the next morning on, Emily's responses were extremely slow. She didn't FaceTime like she promised. She didn't text back like she said she would. The one message I got from her hinted at the fact I was no longer her sister. I remember being desperate, borderline spamming her, asking her if she was okay. I thought this was my parents doing, until I realized the cold truth. It happened the night an old friend of mine from church who, similar to me, messaged out of nowhere. She told me she'd heard about me. According to her, our parents had turned me into a villain in our church, and our sister into some sort of hero. And apparently, my sister was eating it up. Last week, she even supposedly spoke about me being not right for this world in front of the entire congregation while my parents looked on. I was crushed, devastated. What's worse is that by this point, I was already getting max one reply per day, and within a week, my sister stopped texting back entirely. I actually drove to her school one of the days, hoping this was all some misunderstanding, but when she saw me, she turned away and walked off. She wouldn't say a word. My parents unblocked my number just to call me later that day and yelled at me that I was mentally unstable and manipulative. I heard my sister in the background. She was laughing. I thought about exposing her, about dropping the truth there and then, but I decided against it. Staying in that house with them was punishment enough. I hung up and forced myself to forget. It's 6 years later now, and a few weeks ago, my cousin reached out to me. She told me about a big family gathering that was happening and said my parents told her to invite me because there's something they need to tell me. I thought about it, and though that part of my life had long sailed, I still went because I wanted to see my sister again, even if it was just for closure. But then I arrived, and reality slapped me really hard. What my parents wanted to tell me wasn't an apology or anything, but rather that Emily had just given birth to a baby boy. The father was there, a 41-year-old regular member of the church. My sister was dressed in all white and was sitting with perfect posture, no emotion on her face, and was being praised for being a good Christian mother. Throughout that whole night, nobody really talked to me, not even my sister. I got no apology, no closure. At least that's what I thought, because as I was walking upstairs, she cornered, "Sis, I'm sorry. You gotta help me." My heart dropped. Full story on channel, linked below.